request for bill introductions, and Mr. Stuart Little. If you would, state your name and...
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Stuart Little with Little Government Relations. I'm here on behalf of an organization, Grow Kansas Film. I'm requesting an introduction of a bill. I have a version and an RS number for both the House and the Senate committees. For the Film and Television Development Production Act, the bill that you all passed last legislative session. The House bill is 2025 RS 0221. The Senate bill is 25 RS 0445. And I'd be happy to stand for questions.
Are there any questions? Yes. Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm a little stickler on the process. How much does it cost to introduce the bills in both chambers? Is that productive for us?
Probably not my decision to decide whether it's productive for you. I don't know what the cost of introducing a bill is either.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, are there any objections to introducing this bill? Seeing none, bill will be introduced. The next bill we have to be introduced would be Brad Smoot. Brad, yep, there he is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the Joint Committee. I'm Brad Smoot. I represent Net Choice today. We're requesting the introduction of a bill dealing with data centers. The RS number is 2025 RS 306, and we respectfully request it be introduced in the Senate.
Okay. Are there any questions? Seeing none, are there any? Senator Tyson.
Thank you. I missed it if he said which chamber this was being introduced.
Okay. Any other questions? Is there any objection to introducing the bill? Senator Tyson.
No objection. I want to thank him for only introducing it in one chamber.
You're welcome.
Thank you. No objections. Will be introduced. Thank you very much.
Thank the committee, and I especially want to thank the reviser for their help in preparing this year. Thank you.
The next one I have would be Mr. Dan Murray. Is Dan here? Yeah, there he is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dan Murray, I'm here today in my role as the Kansas State Director for the National Federation of Independent Business. Respectfully request for a bill introduction to the House Commerce Committee related to credit card fees, and it's 25 RS 0312.
Are there any questions? Yes, Senator Tyson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like a little bit more explanation on what about the credit card fees.
It has to do with the transaction fees assessed on gratuities and sales tax, so exempting those from being assessed a fee.
Any other questions? Seeing none, if there's no objections, bill will be introduced.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other bill introductions? Seeing none, we'll move on. Today we have, I'd like to make an announcement first. We were scheduled to meet tomorrow afternoon at 1:30, and that has been rescheduled till January 23rd, next Thursday, and it was with the legislative post audit. So we will not be meeting tomorrow. Okay, so first thing on the agenda today would be a presentation on Network Kansas, and we have Eric Peterson. Welcome. Would you state your name? And
thank you. I appreciate it. My name is Eric Peterson. I'm the president and COO of Network Kansas, chairpersons Tarwater and Alley, and members of the Senate Committee on Commerce and the House Committee on Commerce, Labor, and Economic Development. Thank you for giving us time to speak about Network Kansas and strategic relationships and entrepreneurship in Kansas. Before I start, I want to introduce a couple of folks that came with me today. Trish Bracestead is the Network Kansas CFO. And then most of you probably know Steve Radley, CEO of Network Kansas, and he's going to provide testimony when I wrap up. Also, before I start, I want to make reference to the packet that you have because there's a couple of documents that both Steve and I will point to. So this one right here, this is our annual report, our Network Kansas annual report. This is an advocacy document, touches on impact as well as how we're funded. The smaller one is an elevator pitch document, and then the larger one is a map of the 75 communities that we partner with as part of our e-community partnership. So, Network Kansas was a byproduct of the Kansas Economic Growth Act of 2004. Steve was hired in May of '05. I was hired a couple weeks later, and as one of our first marching orders, we created and then launched a referral center in March of '06. The center acted as a one-stop shop to connect entrepreneurs and small business owners around the state with different government and nonprofit organizations that helped provide business building services across the state. The creation of this referral center really proved to be foundational for Network Kansas. Steve and I were both private sector entrepreneurs when we came to this job. So the opportunity to form relationships with the Department of Commerce field staff or with the state's economic development professionals or chambers of commerce proved to be very, very valuable. At that time and still today, the Impact Center received inbound leads via email or phone. The staff conducts a listen and learn, and then they connect that entrepreneur to the right resource, and then we follow up periodically. As I'll explain, these resource partners are not only the ones that are on the ground across the state that help entrepreneurs every day start and grow and expand, but they've really proven to be the conduit by which so many of the Network Kansas gap financing loan programs and technical assistance reach entrepreneurs. I might mention that we're working to ensure that referral center remains relevant and easy to access, so we've rebranded it the Impact Investment Center. And we're also exploring an inbound text notification option. I want to thank Representative Williams for the impetus and the assistance as we work through that particular step. If you look at page 5 of the annual report, you'll see the results from the Impact Investment Center, starting with the 35,000 plus inbound leads that we've received. So the formation of a partner network sounds basic. But our 650 plus partners across the state are really the shoulders that we've stood on for the better part of the 20 years since Steve and I were hired. Whether it be formal organizations like CRETA, the Western Kansas Economic Development Professionals, or KETA, or certified development companies like the North Central Regional Planning Commission, higher ed organizations like K-State's Technology Development Institute or Wichita State Center for Entrepreneurship or the Small Business Development Center at Johnson County Community College, or organizations that work with innovation-led businesses like Nextus, Plug and Play, the Enterprise Center of Johnson County, or urban core partners like Omni Circle here in Topeka, Create Campaign in Wichita, or the Toolbox in Wyandotte County. It's this partner network that is really the inspiration behind what our mission statement is. That's that Network Kansas offers essential financial resources, valuable relationships, expert knowledge, and experience through these partners to the entrepreneurs in Kansas. Our second marching order was to utilize a small amount of state seed funding and the entrepreneurship tax credit to create a gap financing loan program. It was called Startup Kansas. It matched 60-40 with bank or public capital, had a max loan of $45,000, and over the course of several years, provided $9 million to over 300 businesses across Kansas. Startup Kansas worked well right up until a couple years ago when we discontinued and repurposed it because of the introduction of the Grow Kansas loan program, which Steve's going to talk about here in just a couple of minutes. The reason I share these last few paragraphs is to not only help with a little bit of Network Kansas background, but because it was really our work with the Impact Investment Center and the formation of partners and Startup Kansas, which brought us to an intersection in our learning. The thought of empowering others to make decisions with our assets, or another way to say it is we really wanted the communities to make the decision, really gained steam at that point, and it's still to this day a key part of our value system. It's these processes and our value system that are what's behind the e-community partnership. If you look at page 7 of the annual report, or that larger document that I talked about a few minutes ago, you'll see the map of the 75 communities that we partner with. There's pretty significant crossover with members of these two committees, and I know several of you have played a role in the e-community, and for that I thank you very much. Each region of that map, broken out by colors, has specific Network Kansas staff assigned to it. While the staff does have a regional mission, we spend most of our time and focus with and in those partner communities. Now, it's not a real complicated model, but maybe that's the beauty of it. Every one of those 75 communities has a local leadership team. 10, 12 people, 14 people, public, private makeup. Maybe it's an economic development board. Maybe it's a visioning committee. Maybe it's a group brought together just for the e-community purpose. We ask them to meet regularly with our staff present. And the conversations that happen are what you'd probably expect, quite frankly. We'll bring entrepreneurs to the table, discuss with them the goods, the bads, the holes in the ecosystem, what they need assistance with. Have conversations around the different sectors in the community, startup, existing, transition, and what tools, what training, what programming can be brought to the community to help. Maybe it's bringing other resource partners to the table to see what roles they can play to help prop up businesses, or it could be as simple as having a lender's lunch so that the local bankers know that the various Network Kansas loan programs exist, and more importantly, why they exist. And it's not to compete with them, it's to help them get deals done. As a result of the partnership, each one of those 75 communities has access to and local decision-making authority over an e-community loan fund. It's modeled after Startup Kansas, $50,000 max, matched 60-40 with bank or public capital. And then at the end of every year, we and the community evaluate the partnership, and if it's a good partnership, we allocate additional gap financing funds for the following year. If you look at page 3 of the annual report, you'll see the results for the e-community loan programs. In addition to the ones that you're seeing, 1,014 loans, which by the way were made to about 970 businesses, some came back more than once, $32.8 million loaned. Once again, remember, all decisions by the community. Leveraging $151 million of bank or public capital. There's a few other stats that aren't on there that I'd like to point out. Of those loans, 42% are startups, 32% are expansions, 22% are helping with the purchase of an existing business. About half are service-oriented, 27% are retail, 18% are restaurant, and just under half of all those loans are in towns under 5,000 people, and 12% are towns under 1,000 people. Around that time, I often will be asked about the portfolio strength. And because this loan program was started in 2008, there's 16 years worth of history. So there's a full, rich picture, and frankly, it's one that we're really proud of at Network Kansas. Of the 1,014 loans, 37% have been paid in full, about $11 or $12 million. The overwhelming majority of the others are making regular current monthly payments. About 11 to 12% of the businesses have closed their doors over the 16 years at some point, but of those, about a third are making regular payments or have paid their loan off in full. When you think about the loan portfolio, and the fact that there's 16 years worth of history, $32.8 million loaned out. The average loan is $33,000, $34,000. The Network Kansas, the e-community loan is about 18% of the total finance package. The other 82% is bank or public capital. So therefore, we're always subordinate to the bank or the public capital. Almost half are startups. 1 out of 4 are retail, 1 out of 5 are restaurant, and almost half are in towns under 5,000 people. We think that is a very, very strong portfolio, but more importantly, we think it speaks very highly to the serious nature of which our partner communities take their stewardship of state funds. As I end this section, I hope you can see why we place such great importance in our value system of pushing decision-making to the community level. On that same page 3 of that annual report, there are some other loan funds listed there with e-community. In the interest of time today, I'm not going to touch on those. We can answer questions about them later. But as I mentioned earlier, Steve is going to do a pretty deep dive on the Grow Kansas Loan Fund here when I wrap up in just a second. So as I wrap up, it's this long history of engagement at the community level and using loan funds to help drive behavior that we believe is a motivation behind philanthropic organizations partnering with Network Kansas. For the past 3 years, we've partnered with the Patterson Family Foundation. They've provided 2 separate grants to offset portions of e-community loans that were made into critical sectors of business in rural communities: childcare, food-related / restaurant, or vacant Main Street buildings. Throughout the execution of these 2 grants, we've had an ongoing dialogue with Patterson about how to positively affect the interest rates on loans made to Kansas businesses in the 95 rural counties that Patterson serves. It's been a challenge to figure out, and it's taken us a while, but in the fall we reached an agreement with them, and just recently we received an initial $1 million grant from Patterson to be used in this manner. For any e-community or Grow Kansas loan that is done after January 1st of this year, 1 to 5 year note, 15% of the principal will be offset as a grant. 6 to 10 year note, 16% of the principal will be offset as a grant. This philanthropic partnership represents a pivotal opportunity to us to drive meaningful change across Kansas, and I can tell you the door is wide open for us to have more talks with Patterson. At the same time, it's our e-community model and the statewide footprint that we have that has opened the doors for additional collaboration. One example is K-State 105. I don't want to steal the thunder. I don't want to steal their thunder, but I think you'll greatly enjoy the testimony of Marshall Stewart and Jessica Nadd here in a couple of minutes, close friends of Network Kansas. So with that, I'm going to wrap up. And to provide further insight into the vision and the strategy behind our Grow Kansas loan program, as well as our rebranding and new logo, I'm going to hand the ball to our CEO, Steve Radley, and then we'll be happy to field questions at the end. Chairperson Tarwater and Alley, thank you for the time today.
Mr. Radley.
Yes, thank you. My name's Steve Radley. I'm CEO of Network Kansas. Chairpersons Tarwater and Alley, members of the Senate and House Commerce Committee. You know, I present all the time, but every time I get up here, I get a little nervous. I think it's the room. It's such a beautiful room. But I'm really excited to provide you with some background on an update on a federal program that Network Kansas is administering in partnership with the Kansas Department of Commerce. It is called the State Small Business Credit Initiative, or SSBCI 2.0, and it is a program of the U.S. Department of Treasury. SSBCI, branded here as Grow Kansas Loan and Equity Funds, is a 9-year program. Over the course of the program, Kansas will receive $69 million. The funds are distributed in 3 tranches. The sole purpose of this program is to provide capital to entrepreneurs and small businesses across the state of Kansas that leverages and supports private capital. Kansas was one of the first 5 states approved to receive our first tranche of funds. We knew we were early. We didn't know we were that early until we saw the Treasury announcement, but we were very excited about that. So we received $21 million, and we launched the program in August of 2022. We allocated 60% of the funds over the course of the 9 years to loan programs, and we allocated 40% to equity investment programs. All programs require private capital match with the goal of being a 10x private capital by the end of the program. As of our most recent annual report, if you look on pages 3 and 4, I'll just give you the totals. Our loan fund, we have done 154 matching loans totaling 14.5 plus million, which has leveraged over 58 million in private capital. On the equity side, we've provided 28 equity investments totaling 7.1 plus million, which has leveraged 70 million in private capital. Kansas was also the first state in this region of the country to receive the second tranche of funds. You receive the second tranche of funds when you have deployed 80% of the first tranche. In fact, as of December 1st of this 2024, only 14 states had received the second tranche of funds. I also wanted to share some information with you that demonstrates our leadership, Kansas's leadership on a national stage with this program. This information comes directly from the U.S. Treasury annual report. Here's the numbers on where Kansas ranks among all 50 states. We rank 6th in transactions to women, minority, veteran-owned, and rural businesses. We rank 3rd in percentage of transactions to rural businesses with 136 transactions. I think we're first because the other 2 states that were ahead of us, one of them was Tennessee with 5 transactions, which shows they don't have a lot of deal flow yet, and the other was Alaska with 26 transactions. So we lead the country in deployment in rural areas. Kansas also ranks in the top tier of states for venture fund deployment. We rank 6th in transactions to underserved businesses. One particular note about that, we're ranked 6th. All of the states that are above us in those rankings received at least double the deployment that we've received. We also had 2 Kansas entrepreneurs that are actually featured in the Treasury annual report. One is called Cap Creations, which comes from Johnson County, and the other is called Razor Precision, which is from Riley County. And I might add that Razor Precision worked with the Technology Development Institute at K-State and also worked with Great Plains Development Corporation out of Dodge City. The success of the SSBCI deployment is a result of our tremendous relationship with the Kansas Department of Commerce, our 600 plus partners across the state, and our 75 entrepreneurship communities. The most exciting part of a program like this is, you can see I'm pretty old, so I won't be here forever. This loan program and this venture will be here forever for entrepreneurs when in perpetuity. In the annual report and also on this testimony, there's some videos you can watch of different entrepreneurs that have received funding from Grow Kansas. I also wanted to share one last item. 18 months ago, we spent a day with the House Commerce Committee along with many other partners, and we received a lot of constructive input and feedback during that meeting that set us on a path to work to expand our visibility. This is why we've rebranded, and my marketing person is nervous because I wrote this in the testimony, but we are hoping to launch a brand new website on February 3rd that makes it easier for entrepreneurs themselves to navigate to get to our partners. And so we're excited about that launch. She said, I said, you told me February 1st. I said, I gave you 2 more days. But so we're really excited about that. And so, but that was really from the input that we got 18 months ago from you all, that we need to expand our visibility. With that, thanks for the time, and we'll open it up if you have any questions.
We do have a couple questions. Yeah, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so on the Impact Investment Center, and people are coming to you and they're networking and finding where they could get this gap financing and other types of support, would they call would they call this number? I'm just trying to find, the big question is how to get people to the right location to get the right services. And that's what we've been struggling with. And we received this really pretty card here, and it has the contact or connect, and it has this long number. It has Network Kansas email. Is that where they would get that?
Yes, info@networkkansas.com, or they can call our 877 number. I don't know if that's on that
Yeah, the
as well.
877.
But yes, so if you have an entrepreneur that comes to your office and needs connected to resources, that's called our elevator pitch document. We tried to simplify everything we do. But yes, they can call us or send a email at info@networkkansas, and that's what we're working on with the texting thing as well.
Yes, which would be fantastic because there's a lot of information here, not as easy to remember. And then my second question, you have your annual report, but I didn't find the part where it shows where the revenues come from. And congratulations on receiving the U.S. Treasury $69 million or $67 million. That's fantastic. But where are the other revenues? Can you just give us a quick synopsis of how much of that state, how much that is private, how much of it's local, how much of it comes in through?
For our operating budget, you mean?
Yeah, the revenues. It's just the total revenues.
Our entrepreneurship tax credit, which was when we were passed, the Kansas Economic Growth Act, is a $2 million tax credit. So we can raise money through that. We do work with partners, so partners get a portion of those funds as they help us raise it. So we get about, I think this year we ended up with about 1.8 million from that. Then we get some EDIF funds from Commerce. We put it actually in the this advocacy document, so you could, and we get 396,000 from Commerce. The rest of the funds have come from us building sustainable programs, and also Kauffman Foundation. Philanthropy, we're probably, just in this last year, philanthropy supporting our operations is probably 1.8 million. So state funding is probably about 40% of our operating budget now, and the rest comes from either passive income, from interest income from loans, or from philanthropy. Did I answer your question?
It does, but we missed the part about how much comes from the state. I heard you said 396,000, but that doesn't sound right.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. How much did you get from the state? Say that.
From the Kansas Department of Commerce, 396,000.
Okay, that's what I thought you said, but it just sounded low. All right, thank you.
And the other Williams, Representative Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, so with the Grow Kansas program, it's a $69 million. I have 2 questions on that. One, do you see that program going beyond the 9 years outside of the U.S. Treasury? Is it ARPA funds that you raised that from?
Yeah, it was through ARPA. I'll give you an example. Yes, absolutely. SSBCI 1, we administered 1.0 as well. And in 1.0, we received, it was 13 million. That shows how numbers change in 10 years. But so we created an $8.9 million loan fund. We've since done almost 16 million out of that loan fund. And that's another loan fund that's in perpetuity. And then on the equity side, we did a $3.9 million equity fund. We've done about $5.5 million in equity investments. No state money, no new state money in either of those programs. And the same thing with this. The loan fund will just be in perpetuity, And so, we think that that will go on forever, as long as Network Kansas is around.
And then with that, I'm kind of looking at the Grow Kansas website, and to be able to apply for these opportunities, you have to be connected with one of the Network Kansas opportunity groups. I'm sure that provides some type of accountability, but what does that commitment look like until they can start to apply for these?
So the whole key is on a loan from Grow Kansas, you have to have a bank loan. And so we work with Kansas Bankers Association. In fact, we have some banks, and we want more, that can apply directly on behalf of the entrepreneur. So we either have a bank or a partner like Great Plains or that they can go to with that bank loan, and then they will apply on behalf of that entrepreneur. But the whole key to it is the bank loan. And then if you see, we have different, I didn't go into detail, but the match, you can get $100,000 loans, you can get $250,000, or we even have a loan we haven't done yet, which is $1 million, up to $1 million.
Okay. And then if I can do one more question. With a new website, I know, whenever you guys came and testified 2 years ago or whenever that was, we talked about incorporating the Secretary of State's office and the business filings and those types of opportunities that could help get new businesses or small business connected. Do you hope to have any type of touch point with those businesses when they file, or try to incorporate that with the Secretary of State's office?
It's not in the website, but we do work with the Secretary of State's. The Secretary of State's office, did such a good job, it actually reduced some of our call volume, because when they didn't know how to navigate it, they would call us. But that is something that we should look at and talk to them about when they have that. It's a great idea.
Yeah, I would love to see that be able to be implemented, just to get those touch points to those new businesses in Kansas. So thank you for answering my questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And our last question, Senator Owens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for the work you guys do for Kansas entrepreneurs. I think that is such an undervalued part of our economy, and we often find our local communities focusing on these big businesses that bring in huge numbers of jobs, when so many of our businesses were started at home and grown into what they are. So thank you for facilitating that. I have two quick questions. So based on what you were saying about the way the loans work with Network Kansas, you guys are somewhat acting as the SBA, if you will, for the federal government, just kind of on a Kansas level, where you've got to work with a local bank to access those funds?
I would characterize it a bit differently, because a lot of times we'll get an SBA loan that's coming to us. What we really are is the gap financing. We're the bank says, I want to do that. We met with the president of Intrust Bank, and we were talking about it. And what we were talking about is they've got deals that they want to do, that there's not enough, they can't, the collateral says you can't do that much working capital. You can't do that much inventory. You can't do those things. But if they can get that money, they want to do that, their part of the deal. Now, we're the riskiest part of the deal. We're a companion on that sits behind the bank. And so what we want, and actually what Treasury wants, they want the but for our money, the deal wouldn't get done. And so that's what that's where we work.
And that makes perfect sense. I know that's certainly a challenge in the startup ecosystem. Final question. More than just lending, because lending, of course, money's a part of the equation, but what about the connections on strategic partnerships or other valuable tools? Can you elaborate a little bit on what you guys do beyond the lending?
I'm going to turn that question over to Eric.
Okay.
Thank you, Eric Peterson. Yeah, in the interest of time, I didn't go into that. It's actually in my written testimony. But one of the areas that we devote an awful lot of attention to is what we call build a better borrower. Trying to ensure that, in addition, when that borrower comes to us needing gap financing, how can we ascertain what holes are in their makeup or their business skill set, so that we can connect them to the appropriate technical assistance partners around the state for financial projections or accounting help on QuickBooks or whatever it might be. So yes, in the interest of time, I didn't go into it, but that's a very big part of what we do to try and create a better loan portfolio on our end and build a better borrower for Kansas.
Well, if I could just request I connect with you after the meeting, grab your business card, next I have a few more questions. Thank you.
I'd welcome that. Thank you very much.
The last question for this conferee would Representative King.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is your current endowment base or your loan fund base that you have to be able to loan money out to?
And that, I'll hand that back to Steve for that question. So thank you for the question.
The question would be is what is your endowment or your loan fund base that you have to work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. We have multiple pools of loan funds. I don't know it off the top of my head.
If you could just provide it at a later date, that'd be fine.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. And I think Representative Tarwater has a question.
Okay, sorry. Last question here. I just wanted to piggyback on Representative Laura Williams's line of questions on advertising. The biggest issue that the committee found 18 months ago when we were going through all of this was you guys really do incredible work, and you're so valuable to entrepreneurs, but none of them knew about you. And we charged you kind of with advertising. And I know you're changing your logo and you're getting a new website, but how are you communicating that to new entrepreneurs, or how are they going to find out about it? Because I wish I would have known this as I was starting my businesses years ago. You were there, but I didn't know you. I didn't know anything about you. And one of the suggestions we did make at that time was to get with the Secretary of State, and any new business would get information on Network Kansas. And evidently you have not done that. What are you doing to advertise Network Kansas?
Yeah, we work on social media a lot, but I'll be honest with you, I think the next step is likely either a media partnership or that we need to spend some money on advertising, which we haven't ever done. But most of our partners we're kind of this, and you're right, we're kind of an underground network. If you know our partners, you likely know us, but you may not. But we need to work on becoming more visible to the general public. And that's an area where this first step, once we get this first step done, I think that we'll have to come back and share some more information, because that's the next step.
All right, well, thanks for that, and just keep us in the loop and let us know what we can do to help facilitate that relationship to the Secretary of State. I think that'd be the easiest way to get the information out. And in the interest of time, there are several more questions, but would you please stay afterwards in case, so people can kind of collaborate with you? We do need to move on because the K-State 105 people are here, and the House Commerce Committee has heard K-State 105 a couple of times. We did fund it in appropriations 2 years ago, I believe, and they've gotten off the ground. They do some pretty incredible things, and so I'd like you to give them a fair shot here and listen to them, because they do. And Marshall here is a very prolific speaker too. So.
We're not going to talk too long today.
We're lucky enough to get from the University of Missouri.
Well, I'm glad to be here on my way through from North Carolina State through Missouri to Kansas. And I can tell you as a North Carolinian, I never thought I'd be standing in Kansas giving testimony. But it's good to be here. And thank you to our chairs for the invitation. And thank you to all of you for what you do. We were delighted to be here last year, do an update. It's been great to talk to so many of you the past year about Kansas State 105. I know we've got some slides. I think they're going up now. I'll really quickly just set the stage, and then I'm going to bring Jessica forward to really talk about some of the things we've learned this year. We've got a full year of data, and I think it's important to set stage again, go back. 2023 is when you funded this. We had basically got off the ground, had to hire Jessica, a few other folks to get this thing rolling. And as it has begun to roll, we've definitely hit the ground running and seen some wonderful things. But as we think about that, we come from a land-grant university, and obviously we think about what that means. Land-grant universities were started in 1862 and basically were to be the people's university. We have a tripart mission of teaching, research, and engagement, or extension as we call it, to engage with communities. But those three things working together, from teaching to research to engagement, really bring about what you're interested in, which is economic development. When you do those things well, you have great students going into the pipeline, into industry, you have great research, tech transfer, commercialization, and then all that we do, trying to engage that in communities through things like extension and other TDI, Technology Development Institute, and other things that we have. And our partners at Network Kansas, a great example, and we'll talk about that some as we go through this. If we can go to the next slide. One of the things that happened when Rich Linton, my boss, and our president came in, he really began to talk about what it means to be a next generation land grant. How do you take what we did in 1862, we opened in 1863, how do you move that forward? What does that look like? And so example would be K-State is open for business. We just opened up a new office on our campus that has K-State 105, our corporate engagement offices, as well as tech transfer, commercialization, all in one place on our K-State Foundation Edge campus. If you're ever in Manhattan, we'd love to show you that and what it means. It's really created an open door for people that want to really work with us and bring the technology. You got to remember, on a campus, we're creating knowledge every single day in different ways, but it does no good if it doesn't hit the street where you live and work every day in Kansas communities, and that's what we're about. We want to do good things in Kansas because if we know that, we can do good things in the world, but our focus is Kansas. So if we go to the next slide, what you're going to see here is a map of all 105 counties. So when we think about K-State 105, we were fortunate to get that initial $5 million over 2 years of funding to get it going. We're now going to be looking at trying to obviously make that more permanent in this session. But as you think about those 105 counties, we are committed to that. That is our mission. It is to serve all of those. Yes, we do great things in Manhattan, but our mission goes all the way to Garden City and all the way to Olathe. We cover everything in the middle of that, and that is our job. And our student body is not just those 20,000 plus students that come to Kansas State University every year, and we're really glad of that, enrollment being up, but it's also about all those millions of Kansans that come and live and work and play in Kansas every single year. That 2.8 million is really our student body, and that's what we're really committed to as we think about that economic development strategy. So if we get to the next slide. What you see here is how we've really lined this up. To your left, you can see there the economic strategy from the Department of Commerce, rolling that through the Kansas Board of Regents and Pillar 3, which is really about economic prosperity. And for us, the way we respond to that is K-State 105. So we've had great conversation with the Department of Commerce, great partnerships going on there. So many partners that in a moment you're going to hear from Jessica on. Again, it tells a great story. So we'll go to our next slide. And what I'm going to do at this point is give it to the person that really does this work. You see two people on your slides here. They are really the point of the spear. We were very fortunate. We got this money. Immediately we had a search. And if you know anything about a university, you know it takes a long time sometimes to do things in searches. We had this one on the fast track, and within a matter of weeks, I was able to do a national search and get Jessica and Ed on campus working on this. And Jessica's done a terrific job of being not only a great leader, manager of this program, but a great spokesperson for the institution, and has been in so many different places, so many communities across the state. And Jennifer Tidball, who's with us today, she's the one who does the magic that makes all the messaging and all that happen. I know we had questions earlier about communication. How do people find out about you? And we certainly will answer some of those as we go through this today to our chairs. So I'm going to stop there, bring Jessica forward, and we'll be glad to take any questions toward the end. So Jessica, come on up.
All right, next slide. Good afternoon, chairpersons, members of the committee, and distinguished guests. Thank you so much for giving K-State 105 the opportunity to report back on our first year success. Next slide. So before we go through this, inside of your purple folder, there's a one-pager that has a pie chart and a lot of different metrics, and my presentation is actually going to follow the flow of that one-pager. So let's talk about how we are helping Kansas. So K-State 105 is a practical, action-oriented initiative designed to address the unique needs of Kansans. So our work is really focused on these 4 pillars you see on the screen. We have business and entrepreneur support, technical assistance and workforce development, community engagement, and educational expertise and research. So these 4 pillars allow us to focus the efforts of K-State 105. And in our first year, we were very strategic to identify 4 areas that we thought we could have the greatest impact in our first year. So moving on to the next slide. In the first year, K-State 105 received a $5 million investment from the state of Kansas. Our funding strategy was focused and deliberate, with the majority of our resources going directly to initiatives that support economic growth, a university model for economic growth. And here's how those 4 pillars I mentioned earlier were deployed. 47% went to business and entrepreneur support, and this helped small businesses and startups grow by connecting entrepreneurs to expertise and resources. 26% went to technical assistance and workforce development, which prepared Kansans for high-demand jobs through targeted training and technical support. 18% was utilized in community engagement, and we were helping to build resilient, vibrant communities by addressing issues that could have been topics such as broadband access or even water management. And then 4% was allocated for our educational expertise and research. This is really bringing K-State to communities, and we already do that a little bit, so K-State 105 was definitely able to amplify that. Ultimately, 94% of the K-State 105 funding in the first year went directly to Kansas communities, and this approach has helped us ensure maximum impact while demonstrating our commitment to fiscal responsibility. So moving on to the next page. Speaking about multiplying the investment, one of the most compelling aspects of K-State 105 was the ability for us to partner up across the state and multiply the state's investment through strategic and matching funds. The K-State 105 partners, through our partnerships, generated more than $5.5 million in additional matching funds, more than doubling the state's investment. So this collaborative approach demonstrates not only our fiscal responsibility, but the power of partnerships, and I'm going to get into that just a little bit more. So moving on to other key metrics, if you flip over that one-pager onto the other side, we're going to talk a little bit more about the results in our first year. K-State 105 partnerships. Next slide, please. K-State 105 partnerships delivered measurable results in all 105 counties across the state. And the map on our screen demonstrates the project saturation in each county, and I have a little bit more information on that, and I actually have a digital platform that you can access to help you understand exactly where those projects went. So as a result of the first year of K-State 105, we saw 408 jobs created or retained, which include 82 new jobs and 326 retained jobs. We had 415 businesses established or expanded, which included 130 new businesses launched and 285 businesses growing to meet local needs. You also see on that page that 546 employees were trained, and this was in critical industries for the Kansas economy, from advanced manufacturing to healthcare, which helps us to ensure that we have a skilled workforce for the future. So these metrics are proof of what's possible when we work together and we create meaningful, measurable progress. None of this success would be possible without the partnerships we've built in Kansas. And as a lot of you already know, K-State 105 is all about partnerships. Next slide, please. In our first year, we worked with 225 partners statewide, and these included business partners, nonprofit partners, and community organizations and state agencies. We also had 18 higher education partners, which included 6 Kansas universities, 5 community colleges, and 2 technical schools, and there's some really cool stories coming out of some of these partnerships. At the heart of the partnership for K-State 105 is K-State Research and Extension, which serves as the backbone of our outreach. As you know, K-State Research and Extension has presence in all 105 counties, and they provide that direct connection to Kansans. With deep expertise in agriculture, community vitality, and keeping healthcare local, K-State Research and Extension is a very powerful partner. So additionally to our 225 partners within that, we had 47 different units within K-State, which included K-State Technology Development Institute, Office of Engagement, College of Architecture, Planning and Design, and the College of Business Administration. So one last thing about partnerships, because actually this is my favorite topic. Our foundational partners are Network Kansas. We have statewide partnership with them through business and entrepreneur support. We also have the Innovation Center in Northwest Kansas, Go Topeka as our urban core partner, and these partners have helped us leverage expertise across industries, supercharging impact in every region in our first year. So really, this is proof of working together to do what none of us can do apart, and in our first year, we think that we have really great traction to propel us to the future. So next slide. Within these partnerships, we have stories of success. I will begin by highlighting a recently announced project alongside Network Kansas called the Entrepreneurial Blueprint Initiative. We can go to the next slide. So launched in partnership with Network Kansas and K-State Research and Extension, through a competitive process, we selected 11 communities across Kansas to identify and support community-driven projects that can foster additional entrepreneurship and small business development across the state. And this map here indicates where those 11 projects were selected. And I do have a few examples. So in Wellington in Sumner County, we funded the Caldwell Workspace and Commercial Kitchen, which was led by the Sumner County Economic Development Commission. And what's really cool about this is food processing, it's a commercial kitchen, but what they've done that's different, that is what I would call so K-State 105, is now they are adding in entrepreneur support for these folks who need to utilize this kitchen. So that's kind of something you can think about of where 105 fits into that. In Great Bend, we are also helping to support the Ignite Innovation Center, helping that community project, which is also fantastic, obtain and purchase the equipment they need for their innovation center to do what they need it to do. And then the last project is what is called the Side Gig Studio, and this one is really cool. This is in Wetmore, Kansas, teeny tiny town. And what it does is they're opening up a space for people's side hustle to become their main gig. And that's why it's called the Side Gig Studio. It's gonna have equipment in there. You know, a lot of us know that we live in a digital age right now, and we've got people creating videos and content. And there are folks out there that this can be a full business for them. So by having a Side Gig Studio, they're able to advance their entrepreneurship in their community. So through this partnership with Network Kansas, this is really proof that this is our belief in action, and we're proud to work alongside Network Kansas on this project. So moving on to the next slide, I have a couple more stories, and I hope I'm okay on time. So
We have to go to session here.
What's that?
We have to go to session.
Okay, so I think I've probably given quite a few stories, and I can skip ahead 2 more slides, and I can just kind of end in conclusion. Let's go to, keep going, one more. And we can talk about all things Kansas. I can come back another time. It's a great platform. You'll love it. Next slide. So looking ahead, in our first year, it shows what's possible when we invest in a university model for economic development. We will continue to scale our projects. We will continue to take pilots from early stage and develop them across the state. And many of our projects were just launched, so I'm very grateful and thankful for the time. Next slide. These numbers and these metrics that we've reported today is just the beginning. To our partners, esteemed legislators, and people of Kansas, thank you for believing in K-State 105. Together, we're not just shaping the future of Kansas, we're helping to co-create and co-invest in our shared success. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to present today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Jessica. What we would like to do now would be, if you have questions for her, if you could stay just after we adjourn, and then come up and catch questions at that time. Well, thank you very much. If there's nothing else for the committee, we are going to have another joint meeting on Tuesday with Labor and Economic Development. So we'll be here again next Tuesday. So with that, we are adjourned. Thank you.